apologize. Oh my God, I did not have to cough until until as soon as I clicked that button to start the stream, I had to cough. If I keep coughing like this, I'm just gonna have to end the stream. I had like an 8-minute stream in Diablo today because the season's over. I figure, well, okay, I got a couple characters I never leveled up to 70. I'll go through that, and 8 minutes into the stream, I lost I lost the character. Almost all my characters are hardcore, so if you die, they're gone. And I generally, luckily, I don't do that with Minecraft. But generally, if I die, I end the stream. Ooh, creeper. I don't know how much I'm going to do, but I want to go over there because I've been carrying around pumpkins, watermelon, uh, sugar cane, and bamboo. So I'm working my way over to the village. I think I've actually got this carved out all the way. And then I'm going to plant this stuff. And it might be a temporary thing, but I'm going to get this shit growing over at the village. And then might stay there. I don't know. I might stay there and work a little bit. Might go back. There's I'm gonna kind of bullshit and just kind of it's filling you in. I think it's useful information, but it's I'm gonna give you some of the UFO information that is new, and I want to start out with the union situation because my old union before I got sick, and I'm pretty sure I was drugged or poisoned for bringing up quality issues. They went on strike, and my understanding is it's a limited strike. I think they're striking. I think they're striking at one plant for each company. And this makes a little more sense. Like usually, like every contract that came up when I was working, and this is the way they did it. And I think there might be a new sheriff in town because they had a whole bunch of people in the higher ups that ended up going to jail. They this would have been back in 2019. It was the first time. I don't mean this. I'm not trying to be a smartass here. I'm being completely honest. It was the first time I had seen that union make a full-throated. I mean, in like 20 years. So we're talking 4 or 5 contract negotiations. It's the first time I've seen that union do a full-throated attack for the workers. And at the time, I can tell you, I figured, because basically the longer that contract negotiation went on, the longer they had to go to jail. So I honestly, and I still feel this way, I honestly felt the only reason they were actively going after, that they weren't doing it for the workers, they were doing it for themselves, because every day they were negotiating was a day they didn't have to go to jail. And when it was all said and done, they got like 12, I think at least 12 felony convictions. I can't tell you off the top of my head how many guys it was, but it was more than one. It was more than a couple. But they got these guys. And this is the thing. If you go back, and you don't have to take my word for it, you can go back and look. If you look at the way they went after that, Okay, um, they didn't go after them like Hunter Biden. They really didn't. Those guys worked out a plea deal. That plea deal was very very generous considering what they did. And you didn't have them being gone after hammer and tong by the Justice Department. And we're not talking about a guy who had we're not talking about people that had that had gone to war, came back with PTSD, ended up having a drug problem. No, what we're talking about is we're talking about a bunch of crooked fucking people. Like what you see in the Republican Party, like what you see with Donald Trump and these guys were just fucking shitty. One of the things that they did, if I understood it, and I'm not claiming that I did, because this is something I had never heard about when I was still working, but they supposedly stole from some kind of a flower fund. And the only thing I can figure is that was something that was used to that was something that was used to provide flowers like when a union member died. And they stole from it. These people were fucking sleazy as shit. And is that a Harold Brian? Holy shit. And so they but then this one here, I gotta tell you, from my, and I'm not an exhaustive expert on this, but from my limited understanding of how the union does stuff, this is a pretty aggressive negotiation. Okay, so I got one thing of wheat, I got potatoes, I got carrots, and I got beets. So we're all good. I got a little bit of everything. Okay. So they're doing that, and my understanding now, there might be some things I'm going to comment on, and I can only go by what I have no inside information. I'm not an insider. I can only go by what's being reported by people on social media and the news. So if any of this is wrong, then I'm wrong. Don't take this like it's chiseled in stone tablets or anything like that. I have very limited knowledge of what's going on. Oh, where the? I gotta find me a little bed. And but the things I'm aware of that they are asking for is they want like over the course of the contract they want a 46% wage increase, and I'm not gonna say that ain't a lot, but you gotta respect the but. Here's the thing. Uh, there's some water over here. I might have to go do this over there because I don't have a bucket yet. But when you look at it, you can say whatever you want, okay? But the fact is, they've already given that to the CEOs. So if you want to sit there Okay, okay, okay. My fault. I forgot. I'm like, why won't that stuff plant? But they've already given that to the CEOs. And if they can't get the if they're gonna act like they don't make enough money to pay that to the workers, well then they shouldn't be paying it to the CEOs. I firmly believe in that. And it sounds like there is some sticking there because what they were saying today. Now this is on the news. If it's wrong, the news is wrong. I'm wrong too, but I'm not doing it on purpose. But what the news was reporting was that they were reporting that the companies had upped their agreements to about half of that. So I'm guessing it's around 20% would be my guess. I really don't know. And so and again, I'm trying to be honest here. I wish him the best of luck, and I I don't believe that, because you had the Ford guy going, well, we offered them about half of what they're asking for, and if we give them everything they want, it's just unsustainable. Well, then so is that CEO pay, you know, and one of the arguments that's being made now, this I didn't hear anything about. I'm not saying that they're not doing it. I don't want to come off saying like, well, I know and they don't. They might already be doing this, and the news just isn't reporting on it because it sounds like they're dealing with the big issues. Another thing they want is they want pensions back. So these people that work there, like when I worked there, I had a pension, and yeah, that's gone. But I got fucked out of that when I got sick. And as far as I can tell, I was drugged or poisoned for bringing up quality issues. But uh, they the people that were hired a couple years, I think the ones that were hired after the bankruptcy, they don't get a pension, you know. And so that's something they're trying to get back for the workers, and I wish them the best. Seriously wish them the best of luck with that. And I'm gonna. Oh, I got one. Never mind. Um, I wish them the best of luck with that. And the other thing that they were talking about was they were talking about, well, they got a little bit of a wage hike, but they got like a 14% bump in the last contract. Some of them did. Some of them got screwed. Because see, when I worked there, if you were a line worker, if you were like an entry level person, not skilled trades, not management, not somebody that got like extra pay like a team leader or something like that. Uh, everybody made the same wage. Now there was some distinction there, like you had the tier 2 people. They were the ones without pension. They made considerably less. I think they made around 15, 16 bucks an hour, and they were doing the same work. Usually they had the shittier jobs. And the other thing was, when if you became tier 1, and that's what happened in the last contract, if I'm understanding it right, these people that were considered tier 2, they got brought up to where they were making full pay. They were no longer considered like second class citizens. And but the thing is, and this is the way, like when I was there, it was 3 years, I think. Like every 6 months, you started out at like 70% pay for doing the same work. It's not like you had an easy job and you transitioned. It's not like they had somebody helping you for 3 years, so you weren't getting full pay until you could actually do the job. You were doing the same work, and you got like 70% of the pay. If that sounds fucked up, yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And here we go. Looking for my little tunnel. And now it's like, I think 8 years. It ain't even the 3 years, but like you started out 70% in every 6 months, and there was some kind of a requirement. So like some of the people that got hired around the time I did, they ended up in, like me, I worked in an area where we were working all the time. There were some people that got put into the one. God, it was either the medium duty truck. These were like the 3/4 medium. Like when I first worked, we were making the Suburbans, and we were making this what they called a medium duty truck, and then we were making I think it was Nissan. It was either Nissan or Hyundai. It was one of the foreign automakers. We made one of their trucks there. They were like a really small truck. They were not like the big pickup trucks there, but it was a good truck, And but it was like a smaller one. While light duty was the SUVs. Light duty's a little misleading. Those things were pretty big. But see, the other one we made, that was what they called the medium duty, and it was a 3/4 ton vehicle. And what they would do is, you might make 10, 50, or 100 the same. And then what they do is they'd shut that line down, and they would have people come out who would grab all your build information, the books, the charts, all the shit we used, that basically you used to tell you how to build it. They'd pick all that up, and then they'd bring out the new stuff. They'd bring out a new book. They'd bring out new pictures. They'd bring out new charts. There's names for all, but I'm not sure I can remember them exactly, and most of it's not going to mean anything to you. But it's basically the written instructions and the pictures and all that on how to build stuff. And then they'd bring that out, and then once they got that all done, then they'd start up and they'd build 10, 50, or 100 of a new model. Because they made a ton. Like with me, where I was on the Suburban line, not the Suburban, but the Suburban Tahoe and Yukon. It was the SUVs. We didn't have to do any of that. They were real similar. There were certain things you put on differently, but for the most part, it was a real similar vehicle. And you just had to have a few options depending on which one it was, and it was all covered. Where these guys here, you were making stuff for big company, like like any of those big vehicles you see, like when they're doing road construction or clearing brush or whatever. Well, every one of them, depending on who they were making it for, could be vastly different. And it was, the parts had to go, the instructions had to go, and then they bring you all new stuff. And those people were getting laid off because that medium duty line, that was a nature of the beast. They'd work really, really good, and they only had one shift. They didn't work a second shift. So a lot of people liked it because if you went there, regardless of your seniority, you were on first shift, and a lot of people liked working that shift. I was on second shift, and I didn't really mind it. But if I'd have really wanted first shift, I might have got it once in a while, but I'd be getting bumped back to second shift usually probably within like a week or two. I knew one guy like that. It was my buddy's guy I knew in high school was his brother. This guy, holy fuck, he would take the shittiest jobs he could find. He did this for like a year or two. He'd take the shittiest jobs he could find, and he'd hold them for sometimes a week, sometimes a month, and then he'd get bumped back to second shift. And after a while, he just sort of gave it up. He figured, oh, I'll do it enough, and they'll quit. And it's like, no, that you're gonna be there. And like when I got hired, he had a little bit more time than me, but not by much. And they quit hiring people shortly after. So I want to say I had like 100 or 200 people underneath me, and they quit hiring. That's all they needed. So for like 8-10 years, I was at the bottom of the pile. I could have been there like another 5-10 years, and that would not have changed. I mean, it just would not have changed. And he was in the same boat as me. And it's like, hey, you're just gonna have to find a job you can deal with. You're gonna have to find a shift you can deal with, or you're gonna be like him. You're just gonna be all over the fucking place. And I don't know. But yeah, so they were talking about that, and then one of the things they were talking about is how these guys got like a 14% increase in their pay. Well, it's gotten eaten up by inflation. The inflation's like 18%, so they basically took like a 4% cut in pay. And it is what it is. And the thing I would like to see them do, and I don't know why they're not, if I know this stuff, they should know this, or they're not competent. But for all I know, they are negotiating it. One of the things we gave up in the bankruptcy, we lost it. I don't know. I don't know if giving it up is the right word. We lost it in the bankruptcy. Is we lost. It was a cost of living adjustment, COLA. That was there when I got in. We didn't gain it. It was already there when I got hired in. And what it was is when inflation went up, you got a bump. So like if they had that COLA, they would still have that 14% raise because they had 18% in inflation. They would have got automatically. And that is something that and that really, and I don't want to blame the union. The fucking Congress should be doing this. They got that minimum wage. If they would have attached a COLA to that minimum wage for workers, right now minimum wage would be right around $25, give or take a buck or two. This money that everybody's thinking GM is so great to have, that should be the minimum. If you're at McDonald's working that fucking line, taking everybody's order and handing out the bag of food, that should be your minimum wage. If you're loading boxes at Costco, that should be, and Costco actually doesn't pay people too bad. But if you're at Sam's Club, Walmart, that should be your minimum wage. And then the Walmart people probably wouldn't be the richest. They'd still be rich. They'd still have a shitload of money. The Walmart family, the Waltons or whatever, might not be the richest family in the world, But you wouldn't hear these stories about their workers having to chip in and help out the handful of people that can't afford Christmas or can't afford Thanksgiving. And same thing with the people at Tesla and all that. Because that was one of the things they were talking about today. They're like, oh well, you guys are asking for, Andrea Mitchell. Oh my God, I almost turned the news off because she came out just slamming, and then she kind of dialed it down a little bit. She was married to Alan Green, or is married to Alan Greenspan. This is the guy that was the godfather of trickle down economics. And that was one of the brightest moments of my life following him, was when he came out after the end of the Bush administration, W. Bush 43, and he basically, they asked him about trickle down economics, and they're like, well, do tax cuts create revenue? And he's like, well, no, they don't. They really don't. They don't create money. And he goes, look, those tax cuts made sense until the revenue ran out. He goes, I tried to tell them, they didn't want to hear it because I wasn't their advisor there. I was just in charge of the Fed or whatever, and that I wasn't in charge of policy or tax rates. But he goes, when the surpluses ran out, the tax cut should have went away. He goes, when you're running surpluses, meaning when you have extra money, those tax cuts don't hurt anything. But he said right there, he's like, when those surpluses ran out, the tax cuts should have ran out. But that ain't the way the Republicans work. It's why his dad referred to it as voodoo economics when he was running against it when Reagan was running for president. And at a certain point in the interview, he kind of broke down and he said, look, he goes, an economic model that I have championed for 40 years was just proven not to work. So he wasn't even bitter. He was sad. But he goes, an economic policy that I championed for 40 years was just proven not to work. And the sad thing is, he's kind of rode off into the sunset. His wife is still a well-known person on the news channel, and the Republicans are still pushing that failed policy. They're still pushing it. Go make of that what you will. That's the facts of it. But every time somebody on there was saying that, every time somebody was on there saying, well, you're doing this, and it's, they've got to compete with these companies that are making less money, and you're hurting them because they got to compete with that. What if they're not competitive? And I do got to give that new president a little bit of respect when he said, well, first of all, shame on those companies for not paying their workers more. It's like, amen. But when they were talking about that, I really wish the unions would be like, well, he goes, they should say something. They should put this on the Congress. They should be like, well, the only reason we're competing against people making less is because, Congress has not had the minimum wage keep up with inflation. And they should be telling them, if the minimum wage had kept up with inflation, it would be around our wages. We'd already have this. We'd be asking for like a $5 or a $10 more than what minimum wage is. Instead of us trying, we're basically trying to hold the line for what minimum wage should be. We should have that. People that are making $7 an hour shouldn't be looking at us like we're some kind of, pricks. That's what they should be saying. They should be like looking at us asking, like we should be asking for 30 or $35 an hour. And the whole world in the United States, the whole United States should be looking at $25 as a minimum wage going, yeah, that's a hard job. That's reasonable. But right now, because, the Republican parties, this is about as close as they can get to having slavery back, which is something I think they desperately want. But they can do this because they've kept the wages so artificially low from what they should be. When you look at a GM worker able to buy a house, able to buy a car, able to feed his family, able to take a vacation, that's what minimum wage was intended to do. And the Republicans have just fucked the dog on that. They really have. And they should start calling it out. It's like, look, this is what we should have. You know, you guys shouldn't be looking at us and asking for, and they should be telling the news this. You guys should not be sitting there coming to us going, why are you asking for so much? You guys, as the news, should be looking at the history, the facts. You should be looking at these CEO fucking wages. You shouldn't be coming to us going, well, why are you asking for so much? You should be going to these companies and you should be asking them, why are you fucking paying so little? Instead of helping them fuck over the planet, you should be holding them accountable. Because again, when minimum wage was started, if there had been some kind of a COLA attached to it, because the way it worked was every quarter or every month or whatever, however they figured it out, and that was all handled by people well above me, we would get a bump. Like if there was a 20 cents, if there was like an inflation that equated to about 20 cents for that quarter or that month, they'd add 20 cents to our paycheck, and it would be in there like base pay, COLA, so on and so forth. And then every now and then, because the way it would work is if it would drop back down, then they could take it out. So it floated with whatever the inflation was. Well, every now and then, and this was, I believe, spelled out in the contract, every now and then what they would do is they would make a certain amount of that COLA just part of our fucking wage. It would just get moved over. Like if, and I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just saying this is an example. If we had $5 of COLA, what they might do is, in the language in the contract triggered it, they would take $2 of it and put it in our, and that's not what happened. It was usually never that much, but they would take $2 of it and put it in our base salary, and then our base salary would now be like $2 higher than what it had been before that, and our COLA would now say $3. And then it would go from there. So we never got the whole thing. It was always like, well, when the inflation stayed for a certain amount of time, then it rolled over into our base salary. And it was always like that. There'd be a little bit of it that would move over. The rest of it would stay as COLA. And it was more than fair. And they should have some. Well, first of all, they got to get minimum wage. And if they need to fucking go after Joe Manchin and his fucking Maserati death machine running over protesters and that fucking idiot cinema, then go after him. Go after the Republicans. But and the thing is, maybe if they ran on this, maybe they'd get enough votes. If they basically said, hey, we're going to raise minimum wage to $25 an hour over the next 4 years. I think there'd be a lot of young people that might, fucking not get high that day, and they might actually go and vote. I sincerely believe that. Bernie Sanders showed that. Now, you can't run on all of that shit, but there's a lot of stuff. Bernie Sanders is not your typical young, progressive. He'd been doing this for a while. Well, they showed it. He would go to some of these Republican strongholds and he would talk, maybe not what the younger people were doing, but he would basically talk about stuff. He knows how to do it. He knows how to reach out to these people, and they were liking it. They were absolutely liking what he was selling. He was putting it down, and they seemed to be picking it up. So there's some of this stuff that if you go there and you talk to them properly, they'll listen to you. They will absolutely listen to you. And now you can't go in there and start throwing bombs like some of the ones on the left do. That doesn't translate down south. That doesn't translate to these. I mean, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but they went around and they were calling those detention camps where they had the Mexicans that had crossed the border. They were calling them concentration camps. Well, technically they were right. If you look up the textbook definition of a concentration camp, it fit. It was legitimate. But see, here's the thing. Most people don't have a dictionary vision of that in their heads. What they have is they have a history channel around a Nazi holiday, World War II, D-Day, etc. What they have is they have that picture of a concentration camp. They have a picture of it where you have, Jews in ghettos, gold stars, people being executed for the gold in their teeth. That's what they see as a concentration camp. A fairly clean place where they have working toilets and blankets, and well, they didn't always have blankets, but like the vision, what we saw on TV, that is not what anybody in their right mind pictured as a concentration camp. And I'm sorry, but for these people on the far left, when you have to go out and explain it like you did, you're losing. If you're explaining, you're losing. This was Biden. He kind of did this with his people. At a certain point, there were these people that were coming to him with this left-wing shit, extreme left-wing shit. And he said, look, he goes, stop talking. He goes, if you can't explain it in a way that my mother would understand, he goes, I don't have time for it. You guys have to do that. You got to break it down. You got to make it simple enough so that if I tell my mom, he wasn't saying it had to fit on a bumper sticker, but he said it's got to be simple enough that I can explain it to my mom in like one try. I don't have to go and sit down and hold her hand and talk to her on it. Because he said that's what we need to sell this stuff to the people. And that, I think, has been a good guideline for him. That's why he's gotten so much done. So, but that is something I'd like. But again, they might be negotiating for it, but they need that COLA back. Because and again, they probably couldn't get it last time. Maybe those guys, they didn't think about it. Those guys that were negotiating the last time, some of them at the top, they were actually worried about getting sex in the shower in jail. That's where their head was at. So they might not have negotiated completely coherently, because they were really probably afraid, like, well, God, if we screw this up, we're going to be getting raped in prison when we go there. But that's what happened there. The COLAs they need back. And again, like when these people in the press are coming to them going, well, how can you do this to your company? They have to compete with companies that are paying their workers just so much less. Well, they should be like, well, then why aren't you asking those companies, why aren't you going to them and asking, why are you paying people so little? Why aren't you going to your congressman? Why aren't you going to them? All these ones you have on, all these guests you have on. Why aren't you raising the minimum wage up to where it should be? Not where it's been artificially held down. Why aren't you guys, you couldn't find 5 Republicans or 10 Republicans to pass this out of the Senate? You couldn't find a handful of Democrats or Republicans who actually love this country and its workers more than Joe Manchin and Sinema? All you needed was 5 of them. It sounded like you had all the votes. And then you had those 2 traitors to the working class. And, they should be asking this stuff. If they had the people in the press helping out, the unions wouldn't have to do it all by themselves. They really wouldn't. And I don't know. And then another thing they need is when these people are talking about, well, you're making these companies compete with these companies in other countries and that, and the ones in the South. Well, then why don't you guys make these right-to-work states illegal? If you're so worried about it, if you're so worried about these companies, then why don't you make right-to-work states illegal? Get enough people in Congress to put it into the Constitution that, Right to work states are unconstitutional. They cannot exist. Why don't they pass a constitutional amendment making every job a union job? If you're actually worried about it, instead of going after the people that are trying to get more money, again, I'm not saying we have to do it, but maybe that's the question you should be asking. Instead of asking a union why they're trying to get somebody a fair wage and a pension and all that, why aren't you asking the Republicans? Why aren't you asking the Democrats why they're not pushing for a constitutional amendment or a law that would make unions mandatory, that would make right to work states unconstitutional? Again, I'm not saying we need it, but it's like, to me, that's a far better thing to be asking than asking these unions why they're so bad, because they're, why is it so bad to try and get a working person good pay? Why is it so wrong trying to get a retiree a pension? And if they're talking about that, well, you're asking for these pensions. Well, okay, minimum wage should be about $25 an hour. Instead of talking about lowering raising the retirement age and cutting benefits, why aren't you using that standard of $25 an hour as a basis for what Social Security should be paying? Take that upper limit off of Social Security so that, uber rich cocksucker who makes, $8 million a year, like your Elon Musk and all these other people, make them pay 100%. These people that get bonuses, make that 100% taxable. I don't care if they get stock on. Right now, these people, there's so many of these people, they're CEOs and others, when they get their pay, only a fraction of it is taxable. There's a lot of that stuff that they can leave in there and they don't pay taxes on it until they withdraw it. Well, one of the things they do now, and they could close this loophole, they take out loans against it so they don't have to pay those taxes. And then they get a deduction for the interest on when they pay back that loan. They slowly pay that loan back, and they get to deduct the interest. Well, make that illegal. 100% of those bonuses, I don't care if it's stock options or whatever, make it 100% taxable. They can take out a loan to pay their taxes if they want. But this shit where they let it sit in there for 20 years and they never end up, or hardly ever end up, paying their taxes on it, get rid of that shit. Get rid of that shit tomorrow. And then when you talk about, oh, well, you're asking for a pension, and that's another thing they're asking for. This happened, both my parents were still alive. I want to say this might have been right around when they basically before the bankruptcy. Because they came to the union and they said, oh, we're fucked, we need your help. Well, one of the things that the union gave up, so it's not anything new they're asking for. They're just asking for it to be restored. And at the time, I asked the higher-ups in the union, well, did you guys ask for clawbacks? And they go, what do you mean clawbacks? I go, well, we've given up all this shit. Did you guys negotiate a clawback so they have to give all of that back to us before they can start giving themselves raises and bonuses again? And they got real quiet, and they're like, no, we didn't do that. And I go, that's the only question I got. And there were a few people that turned at that union meeting where they turned and looked at me like, whoa. And just a few, not everybody, but there were a few people sitting next to me. They're just like, that's a damn, why didn't they do that, is kind of the gist I got from it. And I think one person did tell me that was a damn good question. I go, well, they fucked us. And, but they're just asking for that back because what they did was management called it, the union called it the VIBA Trust. So they created a trust, and it is what paid for the retirees' health care. And then every contract, and there were a few of them, every contract, the union would negotiate some additional funds to be put in that. And for all I know, those greasy fuckers that went to jail in 2019, they were probably fucking stealing from that. You know, um, that's the way it was. Maybe I honestly don't know if they did, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they were stealing from that trust. They were doing a lot of sleazy shit, and I hope they die in jail. I really do. They were sleazy motherfuckers. It's like the people that I think the people that may have been involved. Because as far as I can tell, I was drugged or poisoned for being I don't know what you want to call it, being a whistleblower. I was raising quality issues and contract issues and other stuff that were not being done right. Because in Indiana, you had a whole shitload of people working there, and some of them were from Indiana and some of them were from elsewhere. They didn't want to follow the contract. They wanted their little sweetheart deals. And I was putting a stop to some of it, and I was also management. They were so used to running their own fucking shit. And it's like, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. You want to do this, then fine, we'll do this. But we won't just do it when they're in here when they're in auditing us for our ISO certification. We'll do it all year round. That was one of the things. Like, we had a thing when I was in that inspection job at the end. In the wintertime, you may not need to be an advanced scientist to understand this. In the wintertime, when they're running the heater, you notice there's a static buildup. That's not there in the winter or the summer. It's there in the winter. When they're running that heater, I don't know why it isn't affected by aircon, but it's affected by the heater. Because wintertime, you're walking around, you touch somebody, you zap them or whatever. Well, we had these things that we needed to wear because we could build up a static charge and we could zap the car plugging in our computer. That was the only reason we had to have it. And so we had to wear it in the winter. Everybody except for our new boss knew that. Everybody. And she made a big deal because we had an audit coming up. She was, well, you guys have to wear that. And I told her, no, we don't. It's not wintertime. We only wear those in the winter. And she made a big deal out of it because nobody was smart enough to write the instructions to actually reflect what we did. There were a couple different things like this. And it wasn't just on that job. Well, then I said, fuck it. Okay. And then because we only had to wear them when they were coming in to do that audit. And I go, fine, and I got everybody talked into it. We basically wore them all the time now. Well, then she was starting to have to order these things, and she ordered them. Well, somewhere up in the food chain, they're like, why are you ordering so many of these in the summer? And she goes, well, I don't understand. And they told her, you only have to wear these in the summer or the winter when the heater's running. Ding, 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 which is what I fucking told her. And, somebody in the food chain above her or in the side chain, whoever was responsible for these, they could not figure out why we were buying so many of these in July or August or whatever it was. Well, then she came out and she goes, oh, well, you guys don't have to wear them. I go, oh, no. I go, we had to wear these for that audit. I go, if we have to do it for the audit, we should be doing it all year round. And then she's like, well, no, but you don't. I go, no. I go, you told us we had to do it or we'd fail our audit. Well, yeah, but when the audits come through, I go, no. I told her, we're not doing this crap for you guys anymore. We're going to do things all year round. I go, if you come to us and tell us we got to do something for the audit, I go, we're going to do it all year round. Well, she didn't like that. And she got a little cranky, but it's like, the one that got me was, I could not get them to understand that when they had a defect, instead of dumping it on us, I got a little kitty here. Instead of dumping it on us at the end of the line, they should be putting these quality alerts near where the job was. Because what happened was we get these quality alerts, and I raised a big stink of this because when I was in Trim 3, there was a guy older guy, pretty good guy. He had whatever he had wrong with him, whatever it's called. It's what Jack Nicholson had in the movie As Good as It Gets. No, he it's whatever was wrong with him. He had it. It just wasn't as bad as what it was in the movie. And he he was down in this pit, and he put what we called the knee bolster on. It's a thing that bolts on underneath the steering column. And what happened was somebody in trim 2, I think, it'd be the area right in front of us on the line. It's across the aisle, but it's basically, you looked at it like, well, it comes through them, then it comes over to us. And one of them was routing their wires wrong. And what they did, instead of doing it over there where it's being done, they put a quality alert on his job. There was no way for him to see it. And this is the thing, it wasn't my team. I wasn't really that involved in it. I was under the impression that those quality alerts were not anything you'd get wrote up for. So I'm like, well, Tom was a good guy. He'd do the best he could. I know that. But you couldn't see it down in the pit. By the time it got to us, it was buried in there pretty good. Well, what would happen is if that wire wasn't routed right, when he was bolting in his knee bolster, the screw would go right through it. And I can't remember if that was one you could fix or if that meant you had to replace the whole wire harness. Because that wasn't really my team. I didn't deal with it. And it wasn't even my area. Trim 2 dealt with that. And because there were just some things on there you could not repair them. You had to replace the whole frickin' wire harness. And I don't know if that was one of them or not. And, well, they ended up writing him up for that. Because he had no idea. You couldn't see the shit where he was at. And he put a screw through something. Well, they wanted to write him up for that. And he ended up taking a different job. Well, in the job, and he was a good guy. He showed up. He did his job. He showed up. He hardly ever missed work. Usually didn't take his vacation time. He just got paid for him at the end of the year. And what happened was, when they wrote him up, he took a different job over in Final Line. And he didn't like it. And he was kind of asking about coming back, and our boss would have taken him back in a heartbeat. But by the time she found out about it, enough time had gone by. Well, medical was trying to find a job to put someone who had sick leave, somebody who had restrictions on it. Because it was a pretty easy job if you could keep up with it. But physically, you weren't, it was like a 1 pound part. You had a couple screws to shoot it. And they weren't really high torque screws. It just wasn't that big of a deal. So he ended up taking a retirement. We lost a good worker for that. And, then I ended up in quality, and I made a big deal out of it because they were trying to put some shit on ours. And they go, well, why are you making... I ended up meeting with, I think it's the equivalent of the area manager. It's either the shift leader or the area manager for quality. And they wanted to know what the big deal was. I go, I don't want us getting wrote up for this shit. They go, oh, you can't get wrote up for those. And I looked at her, and I looked at my zone guy who was in there. I go, that's not true. And they go, what do you mean? I go, I knew a guy in trim 3 that ended up retiring because they put one of these on his job. And because I go, he had no way of knowing. I go, it should not have been put there. Well, when he missed one, they wrote him up. And she goes, that is not supposed to happen. I go, well, then you need to clean house on your end of this. Because I go, that was not a union thing. That was a management thing. She goes, I go, how long ago? It was a couple of years ago. It was before I ended up on the door line on second shift was one. But I go, it was like, whatever year it was. I go, this was like 2010, 2011. She goes, you're serious? I go, yeah, they wrote him up. He ended up taking a different job, and then when he didn't like it, he ended up retiring. And I go, you've got your people out there. And I go, it was the shift leader. I go, wasn't even the group leader. It was the shift leader that was pushing this. And they go, well, that's not. I go, I know it's not supposed to happen. But I go, the union let them do it. Management did it. Union let them do it. And I go, that's not supposed to happen, but it did. And then she's like, yeah, and she was like pretty decent about it. She's like, well, that's not the way it's supposed. I go, well, that is the way it's happening right now. And but they shouldn't be putting all this shit at the end of the line, because then what happens is, if they got to fuck up, half the plan away, we catch it. They either are not going to get it fixed, or they got to run and get it fixed, and then they're probably scratching up shit at the end of the line trying to do that repair in a hurry. They're down there getting in our way because they got fucking handfuls of mirrors and other shit in there. That shit should all go back down to where it is. Like that one, they shouldn't have put that on Tommy's job. They should have put that on the next team or the next job. If it was near the end of the line, they should have put it on the next job and had that person checking it. And then when you find it, the team leader can stop the line, he can fix it, and then send it properly. It's not getting, 10, 20 feet from pay point where they're rolling them off the end of the line, which is what they were doing. And hang on, I'm going to go mine. But that's the shit they had going on all the fucking time. And but that, the union, they should be asking for, like when they come to them, they're, oh, well, they have these competitors they're trying. Well, then why don't you guys offer universal health? Why don't you guys offer every swinging dick person in this country universal health care? Get them the same health care that Mitch McConnell has, his disabled ass showing up, can't do his fucking job, can't even speak. It looks like he was in the episode of Frozen or something like that when he stopped speaking mid-sentence. Get everybody that health care. That's what you need to do. And then you won't, the union will not have to sit there and ask for health care for their pensioners, for their retirees. You get them that health care now. That should be something that the unions are, when they have those people, well, you're doing this, hey, you want to make it a level playing field, get us health care. Get universal health care. Get it as good as what Congress has. If they can afford it for them, they can afford us. If they can't afford it for them, then they can't afford it for, they can't afford it for us, and they can't afford it for Congress. And get them going on it. And get them, maybe the news will start, if you tell them, it's like that movie, if you build it, they'll come. Well, if you tell them this, maybe they'll report on it. Maybe someone there will go, yeah, that's fair. Maybe they'll sit there and go, yeah, that's fair. If we can give Mitch McConnell and his disabled ass this good health care, maybe we can afford it for every working person out there, and the retirees and the people that are sick. And there's a whole lot of people that will come out ahead on this. Every company out there, whether it's Walmart, Culver's, McDonald's, if they all had that health care, well, then guess what? Their employees would be healthier. They'd show up to work more often. They would feel better. They'd be waiting on the customers better. It'd be a whole 9 yards. Just like a win-win for everybody. And that's something they should be asking for. This is what we should have health care. We should have vision. We should have dental. And then guess what? GM won't have to sit there and pay us for this. We can focus on our salaries. But again, you got these union people, when they're being asked questions they need to start bringing this shit up. They should be bringing up this stuff, like because that's another thing they're asking for. This is the thing, I have no idea what this guy's doing, but this would have been the last contract they negotiated when I was still able to work. Somebody was telling me, and she was kind of she was that one that was always trying to cross thread the bolts, and I think she was stepping on shit because she didn't want to work. She was trying to create problems for fucking me. And if managing, unless they deleted my shit, I had a picture of what she was doing. I had a picture of some of those screws she shot in there at a 45-degree angle with a gun that you pull straight down. For you to shoot a bolt in like that, you had to force that gun to the side like that and shoot it in like this because that thing came straight down. And one of management, he saw me fix it. I don't know, and again, if he saw her doing that, he should have instantly wanted to write her up or fire her, and he didn't. So either he didn't see it, or he wasn't very competent. That was Jack. He either didn't see her do it, or he wasn't worth a shit at his job, because that should not have been fucking tolerated. It just should not have. And but he came up and he goes, yeah, I saw you fix that. You didn't even need to go get. I told him, I go, there's nothing wrong with it. I go, she's just shooting him in cockeyed like that. And I go, I don't know how the hell she's doing it on accident. But I go, it is what it is. Well, I shouldn't have to do their job for him. He obviously had a pretty good idea with it. There was nothing wrong with that job, and nothing happened to her. They tried to fire me. They tried to fire me because, in part, she didn't want to do her fucking job. She wanted to come in and sabotage the fucking work and sabotage the fucking line. I think she got, and again, I'm not a big fan of this. I just don't have a dog in the fight. But I think she got somebody in management fired because she was claiming that she broke her foot. Well, this thing went on for a month or better, a couple months, where if you paid attention, there were times she was limping on the wrong foot. She didn't have anything fucking wrong with her foot. Sometimes she'd limp on I don't even remember which one was supposed to be broken. She fucked it up so much, but sometimes she'd limp on the left foot, and sometimes she'd limp on the right foot, and then sometimes somebody'd ask her if she wanted to go have a smoke, and she'd fucking walk normal and race to the door so she could go have a fucking cigarette. And, But, management didn't do their shit there. And it's like, hey, I'm sorry. I can lay it up for you. I can lead management to water, but I can't make them fucking drink. And, but no, eventually but I think she got somebody in management fired because she was acting like she had a broken foot. Well, at a certain point, somebody finally woke up in the medical department and they said, oh, your foot's really broke. And she said, yeah. And they go, well, we're going to send you for an x-ray. She flat out refused. And then she was telling me about it. I go, your case is done now. And she goes, what do you mean? I go, if you're sitting there claiming that you got a broken foot and they offered you treatment for it and you refused, I go, you legally don't have a leg to stand on anymore. And she's like, well, the union told me I'd have $1 million lawsuit. And I go, not anymore. I go, they probably documented it. I go, somebody up in medical department, I go, it's either a nurse or a doctor. They wanted to send you for an x-ray. And I go, if you're going to sit there and claim that you got injured at work and all this other shit, I go, you have to go get that. I go, you have to go get that x-ray done. And I go, the fact that you refused, I go, you're going to have a hard time. I go, you probably have made this case unwinnable. I go, even if you really did break your foot. I go, I'm not trying. I told her, I go, I'm not taking sides, but I go, even if you really did break your foot, I go, you refused that x-ray. I go, there's nothing you can do now. Even if you literally did get your foot broke, you don't have a leg to, I go, you literally don't have a leg to stand on anymore on it. And she got real quiet. Well, again, after that, they started to expect her to do her job. And she couldn't play this, oh, poor me, I broke. But she got that one guy fired over this, and I'm not sure he did anything wrong. I think she did to him what she fucking did to me. And then, I don't know if she was involved in the other guy, but after I left the area, One of the girls that kind of worked with her on going after me, trying to get me fired, she pulled that shit on him. She was fucking around with a crossword puzzle when she should have been working, and she was shipping shit left and right. And he fixed a bunch of her stuff that day, and he went up to her and he said, "Hey, I just fixed a whole bunch of your mistakes. Maybe you can put the crossword puzzle book away and do your job." Well, the next thing you know, he was being accused of all the shit and my understanding is they were told flat out they didn't have enough on me to fire me. Well, of course not, 'cause she made it all fucking up. And they did that on him. Well, I don't know if what happened to me woke him up or if they were just treating him better, because the religious nut that they had in labor department, she made a comment that they had to protect the good Christians from me. Yeah. So apparently, in Indiana, if you want to work at GM, you have to subscribe to the religion of whoever the nut job is in fucking labor up there, or she'll try and fire you. That must be a fucking Indiana law, because as far as I know, it's not legal in Wisconsin. And but whatever it is, maybe she thought he was a good Christian, so she decided to do the right thing. I don't know. But they got to the bottom of that, and I was told that they moved her to another plant. Well, she ended up in material somewhere. But they got her the hell out of there. They didn't harass him like they did me. They flushed her out of the fucking department. And oh, no. Come on. I'm working on getting this place lit. No, I really don't want to fuck with that spider. If I gotta fuck with that spider, I'm just gonna go, cause I don't have armor or nothing. I'm just gonna go in there and wait for morning. Might be okay here. I think he went down. Oh, fuck no. Jesus fucking Christ. I'm carrying a bed. I'm trying to get back to my bed, and I'm finally remembered I'm carrying a bed. I'm like, yeah, fuck this shit. Yeah, there was a little. That's the first baby zombie that I've actually remember seeing on this game. But yeah, they did the right. They didn't do it with me, but they did the right thing with him. They didn't put up with that bullshit the second time, at least. But I know they can't do this, because if they did, it would actually hurt legitimate people. But when you have a case like that where you got some just worthless fucking girl that makes up shit trying to get somebody fired like that, they're the ones that should lose their job. You know, I'm sorry. But again, if you do that, then you're going to have people that have legitimate problems, not the shit that I dealt with, but you're going to have people with legitimate problems that aren't going to come forward. But I'm sorry, that's just wrong. You get they've had cases where like high school girls made up shit about their teacher, and they never get over it. Their lives are ruined. And then when that didn't work out, it was like 6 months or a year later, my health started going bad. That's when whatever was going on was going on. But it really seems like I was exposed to something that ruined my fucking health. And, but no, I don't know. But they need to do something about that. But I'm gonna get off the. But there's a whole bunch of that shit that the union, when they're asked about it, and the guy they had, I mean, he was doing like when they were asking about other companies. Well, shame on those companies for not paying their workers more. And it's like, hey, that's a fair answer, not the perfect answer, but it's a fair answer. And now in the UFO thing, and I talked about this a little bit on the Diablo stream when I was playing that, but NASA released their UFO report, and I gotta tell you, I did this a little bit yesterday. That guy that's running NASA, he's a nice guy, he really is, but oh my God, he was as painful to watch as that one Republican judge that they brought in for the January 6th. He just, well, um, we needed to investigate this, and it's like, oh my God, you just want to get a hacksaw and take those Herman Munster bolts off his neck and see if you can get him to loosen up a little bit. But it's like, holy shit. Well, we want to look at this, so we got some of the best and brightest from England to come over and educate us ignorant Americans on UFOs. And but holy shit, but the one thing I got is they admitted that there is stuff they can't explain. And I don't know if this was targeted or meant to be misleading, but one of the things, because they made that comment in News Nation when they were talking to, they showed the video and they had the little ticker down there. They were saying that NASA admitted they can't explain everything, that they just can't. And, but then they also said that there's no evidence these things come from anywhere else than Earth. And what they said was, and again, to me that's a little misleading, because if you don't know what it is, how do you know where it comes from? Well, we can't really explain how it works or this or that or the other thing, but we're pretty sure that they didn't come from off of the Earth. And it's like, yeah, that's not real credible. I'm gonna go ahead. I gotta make some more boxes. I'm running out of shit here. And but they did that. It's like, well, if you really don't know that much about them, if you can't explain it, how do you know where they're coming from? And and that to me, I don't know who's asking the questions, and it's like, they should be going, well, okay, so you don't know what they are, you don't know this, but you're saying there's no evidence, so these things are living on Earth. That should be the question. Well, I didn't say that. No, you didn't, but you kind of implied it. These things, you don't know what they are, you can't explain them, and you're saying that. So you basically, what are you basing that decision on? What makes you think these things are from Earth? We're gonna have to cancel this meeting. We don't really have any answers for you. It's like they said that just to kind of silence the crowd a little bit. But so they did that, and and they are doing some stuff, like they're gonna kind of centralize. But this is the thing I don't understand: are they only gonna be looking at stuff in the sky? And that wasn't, to me, that was not made clear. Are they only going to be looking at stuff in the sky, or are they going to be taking over all the stuff in the intelligence community and the military? Because at one point he was talking about the telescopes and looking out, and he did say that he asked the scientist, he goes, scientist, like, something about the odds that there's alien life, and they were told, like, what it is, it's the, I might be wrong, but I think it's the Fermi's paradox. It's there's a mathematical equation, and it might, with the new telescope we got, the James Webb telescope, they might have to revise it. But it was made by a scientist, a mathematician, and it based a whole bunch of stuff on what we knew about the universe, and we know more, or will know more, with James Webb, because we can see further into it. There's already been things that it has discovered that will probably be rewriting textbooks, because there's things we can see now that are supporting or proving scientific notions false or true. And they can actually see it happening with the telescope. Well, um, the the Fermi paradox, it takes into the suns, the planets, and stuff like that, and it's a way to kind of guesstimate how many intelligent civilizations are out there. And I think that's where, I think he got that wrong. I'm misunderstanding him. But with what he's talking about, he didn't say the Fermi's paradox, but he was putting it, he ended up saying something like 1,000,000,000,000%. Well, that, no. I think what he was trying to say, and maybe I'm wrong, is that there's probably like 1,000,000,000,000 intelligent races out there, whether they survived or died off. But there's probably in the ballpark 1,000,000,000 advanced civilizations out there, or intelligent civilizations. Doesn't mean they can space travel, doesn't mean they can travel here, but that's what they were telling him. And that's a lot. That's a lot. And a lot of what he was talking about, it's, again, it sounded like they were looking out in space. Well, then when they were talking to Ross Coulthart, he said, well, he goes, they're really going to have to look into videos that have been taken by NASA, by the military. And she goes, what do you mean? She goes, well, and he had names for it. I think it's the code names that are used by NASA. And it was I don't know, SVS or SPS. It's the space shuttle photos. And he had the one, it was, whatever the little code letters were, 48, I think is what he said. And he goes, that's the 48th shuttle mission. And there is a photo, and I think this, if it's what I think it is, I've actually seen this one. They've done this on UFO shows. What it is, there was something that they caught in, it was something that they caught. It was something that they had caught on camera in either the shuttle or the space station. And there was something that was moving. And it could have passed for probably a satellite at the time. And then a beam of light or something seemed to come off the planet, and this thing rapidly accelerated to get out of the way. So it clearly wasn't a satellite. it wasn't a star. Pretty obvious that it was something that seemed to be either automatically or intelligently controlled. And there's other ones, there's been stories that are attributed to actual NASA astronauts where they're like, well, yeah, we saw something. I don't know if any of these are true, but the claim is that people who were doing all the God, it's kind of a hobby, shortwave radio or something like that. Uh, there's a pretty big hobby because you can contact people from pretty long distance with this thing, and they were picking up uh, communications from the astronauts during some of the space missions because whatever they were communicating to NASA with, they were able to pick it up on with their antennas. And according to them, and I don't know if any of this is true, I really don't, but according to them, NASA at certain times would switch over from the public broadcast, the one that people were able to listen to, the one that they were broadcasting for everybody to listen to, and they would switch over to the private medical frequency. And I think there's some of this where they actually have, unless it's been recreated, but my understanding is the actual audio recording of the moon missions where they started talking about Santa Claus, or they had code words, and the accusation is that these code words are when they saw an alien or something that wasn't human. And again, I don't know if that's something they made up for the shows or if those were real, but that is the claim, that there were times where they would basically just make their little coded thing. Yeah, Santa Claus is here, or whatever they were. They had little code names for it. You'd have to go watch the shows. I can't remember off the top of my head what they were, but it was little code for aliens. And then what they would do is they would go to the medical channel so they could speak a little more. Well, some of this was picked up by these people running these shortwave radio things or whatever. Because like some of the ones that got it, they can actually communicate with people over in Japan. And I got to tell you, and again, I hope this doesn't make me a bad and unworthy person, but if I ever do win the lottery, I'd have to talk to a lawyer, make sure it isn't something inherently stupid that then you could go to jail for. But if you won the lottery, I would love to set up to do a numbers station. Just make shit up and see, because again, just set it up. And you'd have to figure out what the limit is for what you could broadcast without having a radio. And it's real limited. But you set it up and you broadcast this, and those number stations, they just broadcast numbers. And the thing is that it's but that is something that would be kind of cool to do, where you're broadcasting that and then see if you can get people to try and figure out if there's some kind of and maybe even make a code where you're basically talking like some kind of a code where if they actually do decode it, you're talking about how Pamela Anderson is like one of the most beautiful women in the world back in her heyday. Just put shit up there like that or give a review on like your favorite episode of Star Trek or something like that. So that if somebody actually decodes it, they'll find just the dumbest fucking thing. is, yep, that's gravel. Well, if I ever need it, I have a pretty good supply of flint growing here. Um, but yeah, that's what came out this week. And oh, beetroot seeds. I should have left those over there. That's okay. I'll start them here and then I'll take some back. I put the carrots over there. I forgot to do that. And then oh my God, I'm getting a little lightheaded, and I was kind of like to go at least an hour if I can. And there's times I can't, but I'm getting a little lightheaded. Hey, for those of you out there, I hope you enjoyed it. I will try to find a more coherent talk for the next one. But I hope everybody has a good day. The sun looks like it's out. I really wish my leg was feeling better so I could go outside for a little bit. It's cooling off now, so it might get to where I can turn the aircon off and just crack the windows at least and get some fresh air in here. Peace out, and I hope everybody has a good day.